Michael, how's your practice going?
My practice is going pretty well. I try to make sure I do at least one thing a day.
Okay, so how do you keep a consistent practice, really? That's kind
Well,
of like our topic for today.
Well, so I'll dive right in and just saying that I love the idea that you bring forward in some of our classes about bringing the practice to you, right? Like living the practice. So I really try to be mindful of that. Mindfulness in the car as I'm going to work, mindfulness while I'm eating, moving throughout the world as if I'm working on leg work and my sparring practice. I would say that hunkering down, running through, let's say, the yang form from start to finish, right? Or going through all of the pakme that I've learned, things like that. That hasn't been as consistent as it has been historically, but I'll do
Right.
fractions here and there, right? Like I always make sure when I wake up in the morning, after I take a shower, I have this routine that I love doing. After I take a shower, the first thing I do to dry off is I just do what I call my qigong shake, right? I just kind of go up from the hips and just shake the water off, right? And that's kind of a way for me to kind of
It's a good one.
start the practice. I love it, dude. It's fantastic. I do it
It's
every
like a
morning.
dog. It's like a dog after a shower. Just go,
It,
"Brr," right?
exactly, exactly. But doing it mindfully throughout the whole body as if it's a qigong
Very
motion,
mindful.
it's great. So, but yeah, usually when I get to the office, I'll try to do like a portion of the Chen or something along those lines. So I'm trying to keep it as consistent. But again, I would say historically, maybe back when you and I first met, it was almost like every morning on lunch breaks when I got home from work. Like it was a very, very regimented, like disciplined thing. But then what I recognized is by bringing the practice into my daily life, I can still get a lot of the experiences and practice little nuances here and there without needing to separate so much time out of my day that has been piling up with obviously everything that you and I have been building, my caseload building, things along those lines. But the practice in itself is a good mental reset and a practice of mindfulness to give you fuel for the rest of the day. So I always make sure I try to do one thing a day. That's always my rule. One thing a day towards my goals, right? It doesn't matter if it's super small, but everything is a success. So as long as I do one thing a day towards my goals, I'm satisfied.
One thing a day towards your goals. Uh, I like that. I like that. You're making sure that your day at least has something about it that directs you towards your goals. So I'm assuming you're setting your goals, etc. Because today, before we jump into that, today's topic is all about spirituality in the little things. Like spirituality in the little things, how we keep a consistent practice. And before we dive into that, I thought you gave some lovely examples there. But first, we talk about that concept of being consistent with practice. That's honestly one of the most difficult things I feel like, or at least it shows up very difficult for people, is to be consistent in something they get excited about because over time you lose some of that inspiration to practice and then it kind of goes into your daily life, into the it gets lost in the minutia of every life. So but that is such a core component of any kind of spiritual practice, any one of those, if it's yoga, Tai Chi, if it's Qigong, any one of those, they are all have that concept of practice. So if it's in yoga, they have the concept of tapas, is going through the austerity of practice. If it's Tai Chi, like you mentioned before, it's like doing your Chen, doing your forms, do your postures, do your meditation,
Hmm.
breathing exercises, proper eating, proper behavior, yamas, niyamas, that's also in yoga. The idea of reading scriptures, swadhyaya, all these concepts are, you have to sit down and do your work. And if you don't do those, it kind of hinders your practice a little bit, right?
Right.
Doesn't it? And so let me take your perspective before we jump into how we handle it. What is our practical advice around this? Why is it so difficult, Michael? Why is it so difficult to maintain a practice? I'm assuming this is a question that probably comes up to a lot of people who are listening.
Hmm.
It's like I want to do the practice. I know it's good for me. I know it's gonna help me develop. I know it's gonna progress me towards my goal. But sometimes I find myself I'm back into the old habits. I'm
Hmm.
back into losing my grip on my practice.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to, really understanding that by implementing something new into your routine, into your life, something like some sort of change, right? We're ultimately creating a new baseline. Our brains are operating off of survival mentality, right? So we've survived up to a certain point doing things a certain way, right? And so when we try to implement something new, it's easy to fall off of that track because we call it readiness for change, right? There's a gap between the readiness and the body's response on being able to make that uniform, right? So it's kind of chipping away, and that's why when I work with people that are trying to make lasting change, I always frame it that everything is a success. So even if you set the intention of, I'm going to practice 5 days a week, right? And you wake up in the morning and you think about practicing, but you don't end up doing it, you get distracted, you can still count that as a success because you're doing something different, right? Like you are trying to really work something into your nervous system and into your operating procedure, right? That's going to make a lasting change, but it's very easy to fall back into old habits when it seems so foreign.
Right. So why is it that, so you're saying basically, if I'm following you right, is that some things are going to be more difficult to maintain, like new habits, and there's going to be some habits are going to be easier based on what is, let's say, more friendly to our survival attitude, like wherever our survival attitude is. So if it's easier for me, that's why it's easier for some people, I guess, to run every day because
Hmm.
maybe that's just something that is more comfortable, more convenient, more joyous. And there's people who are gonna find it like they're afraid of it like fire, like
Hmm.
they, as soon as that idea alone of jogging comes out, they're already completely out of it.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example for myself this morning, actually. I was I was supposed to go train and do kickboxing at my gym today, my MMA gym. And I accidentally went to where I teach yoga. My brain, for some reason, thought it was Friday. So I
Hmm.
walk in and I say to the front desk lady, she sees me and she goes, "Oh, Shahar, what are you're subbing a class? You're taking a class? What are you up to?" I say, "What do you mean? I'm here every week. Of course I'm teaching a class." She goes, "No, you're not." I say, "Yes, I am every Friday." She goes, "Shahar, it's not Friday, it's Wednesday." And I'm like, "What?" And the funny thing, I before we had that conversation, I actually went and took a shower because I took a shower before teaching the class. I was like ready to teach. I was about to set everything up. And then I realized it's Wednesday. And I'm like, what? Why was it? Why am I here?
Yeah.
Why what was I supposed to do this morning? And what I was supposed to do, I told myself is go teach, and not go teach, go practice.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
on the way to practice, my muscle memory carried me into where I teach.
Right.
So on my way there, because I was a little late, just a little bit late, and my head went towards, oh, you know what? I don't have my gear with me. I have to borrow someone else's gear. Maybe it's a good reason to just go home and scrap the whole thing. And I remember I was in the intersection, literal intersection, and right was to go to the gym, left was to go home.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, Shahar, you should go home because then you can have like a lazy morning. But I'm like, but Shahar, you said you're gonna go train. You gotta go train. This is important. It's important. It's
Hmm.
healthy. It's fun. I don't want to, but it's not a gear. So I'm looking for excuses not to do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And right at the last minute, as people are honking behind me
Right,
because I'm doing this,
right.
I am going, oh, fine, I'll go practice. And I loved it. I
Yeah,
enjoyed
of
it. I
course.
did a practice for like an hour and a half. I went back home and
Hmm.
then continued my morning. Now, you're saying that the reason it was so difficult is because the being home is more survival friendly,
Yep.
and being at the gym training with other people trying to punch my face is not survival friendly. Weird. That's odd. That
Interesting
doesn't
how that
seem right.
correlates, right? Yeah.
That sounds odd. That, so is that what you're suggesting? Is that really kind of the gist of it? Why is it so difficult?
That would be my theory, right? Again, like we operate off of a survival mentality in general. So I think that whatever seems familiar, right, and whatever seems comfortable is naturally where our body wants to go until we make it into a long-lasting habit that we can really feel rewards from, right? You go back into the reward system. I'm sure your lazy morning probably included sitting down and playing some games, right? Or things along those lines,
We don't
right?
talk about it.
That's why I don't do these in my little man cave with all my PlayStations and Xboxes
Right,
and
right.
stuff like that, right? So that's pleasurable, right? Pleasurable to go play some games, have a lazy morning, things along those lines, right? So the trick is really trying to find pleasure in the things that you want to do rather than see it as a pass fail. I've accomplished it, I haven't accomplished it, right? I have to just get through it, right? It's really identifying, well, what is rewarding about just being there, right? Like what is it about being in the ring, right? Or going for a jog, right? That I can find pleasure in, that my brain will kind of reorganize that as its own reward system. Right. So like you said, the people that enjoy jogging, right? Like I'm not a jogger, right? I'm one of the people that is just very turned off by I love paddle boarding, I love biking, I love walking, but the whole idea of being like super out of breath and like everything like that. Like it's just like it just feels the idea is just very uncomfortable for me. But why is it that I can totally be out of breath while I bike around or go paddleboarding or something like that? It's because there's things in those activities that I genuinely enjoy. I love the feeling of kind of weaving in and out on a bike, right? I love the idea of just kind of floating on the water, right? These things are very attractive to me, right? So that's what really helped build those into lasting habits because I was able to find a reward system within the activity.
So finding a reward system within the activity. So why did I made that right turn? Why in the end I decided to go and do the practice? What was the reward? Because the reward was getting punched in the face. Actually, I did pretty well. I didn't get punched in the face once, but and actually I did it most of the punching. But why did I make that right turn? Why? What is the name? So if survivability was going left,
Mhm.
what was turning right? Is it the reward? Was it or was it inspiration? Was it will driven? What is that?
Well, I'm sure a part of it was will, but let me bounce it back to you and ask you, right? So, what do you feel is the most rewarding thing about being in a sparring setting?
Well, I guess personally, if we're talking about the idea of sparring specifically, personally, it's enjoyable. I know it's healthy. It energizes my body. I know that it makes me feel much better while I'm doing it. It's fun. It keeps my energy up. And I know spiritually and energetically, it's good for my soul. Right?
Hmm.
As Swami Brahmananda from the Shivananda organization, he likes to say, and in yoga, that's kind of a core concept. The distinction or the discrimination between your ego and your soul, your intuition. So when we feed the ego the duality of concepts, that is undesirable from the practice of yoga. When we feed the soul, like the core concept of us that sees unity in everything, that's more desirable in the concept of yoga. So we always want to reunite with Brahman and God, and that's through the soul. And we don't want to reunite, we don't want to reinforce our connection to the body, that's being the ego.
Hmm.
So Swami Bhavananda puts it in a very simple way. He says, if it's a choice between what is pleasant and what is good, that's how you know which is which.
Hmm.
The pleasant is gonna be your ego,
Hmm.
because that's gonna be reinforcements of your own ego. That's gonna be the reinforcement of the I am, the duality, kind of this wheel of samsara, the kind of like the cycle where the rebirth cycle, we keep going through the same suffering. I actually
Hmm.
read a whole book by Swami, not a whole book, but just a little page of the Swami Shivananda's book, Inspiring Stories, describing this specific situation.
Hmm.
And he describes a man who runs away from three tigers and then falls off a cliff and grabs a root in his hand. And underneath him, down the cliff, there's alligators and snakes. and there's two mice biting off on the root he's holding on.
Hmm.
And that root has a little fruit on it that has a little bit of honey come down from it.
Hmm.
So while he's in a situation about to die, either from the tigers, either from the alligators, and these little mice
Hmm.
cutting down his root, he still wants to get a little taste of the honey.
Hmm.
Now, I never really liked that story that much, but it represents the life situation of the human being.
Hmm.
It's the people who crave the comfort, who crave that honey.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter whether you're in the most drastic situation possible. You have two mice nibbling on the root, which represents time, the day and the night cycles, taking away your time, literally. And in that moment, all you want is still the pleasure.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's kind of the absurdity that Swami Shivananda suggests. Now, it gets deeper than that. He says the answer to that is to dedicate yourself to God, to Shiva. But that's following the pleasant, that's following the ego. But following what is good, that's what's following the soul. That's what
Hmm.
reconnects you. That's what will connect you to, based on the yoga principles, to Shiva, to Krishna, to Ganesha, or whatever deity you have. Or like you said, like doing that one activity that promotes my practice, that supports my growth.
Hmm.
That would be the good thing, whether it's pleasant or not.
Right.
Now, the best if it's we can make the good pleasant, but sometimes that doesn't happen, right?
That's
Or
the whole
if not the majority
idea.
of the
Yeah.
time. So following what is good, not following what is pleasant.
Right. So how do we make the pleasant good?
Oh, Michael, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I don't know. I don't real honestly, I feel like, joking aside, I feel like the way you make the pleasant good or the good
The good
pleasant,
pleasant. Yeah, right. Sorry, I misspoke.
thank you,
Hmm.
is you have to understand why you're doing the good. You have to kind of reconnect to inspiration. That's what my teacher calls it. It's reconnecting to the force of inspiration. My martial arts teacher back home, and that inspiration is the connecting to the reason why we're doing it. So when
Hmm.
went, the reason I went that took that right turn could have been for the reward of having like a nice, lovely bod, of being like a good, strong person. But honestly, I did it because I knew it would be good for me. And my resistance to it was proof for me that I needed to do it.
Hmm.
That's kind of like a good sign for me. That because I'm resisting to it, I know I need to do it.
Right.
I know that's gonna develop my soul. It's giving my soul one more extra collection of energy down the road,
Hmm.
rather than kind of and rather than fueling that ego. And I'm sure both you and me can definitely resonate with that. You correct me
Oh
if I'm
yeah.
wrong, but what happens if you fuel the pleasant too much?
Hmm.
If you fuel that need to hide, that need to do the things that are comfortable, you kind of, I know for me it makes me become stagnant, make me more agitated, makes me less developed as a human being,
Hmm.
less aware, right?
Right.
That's kind of a core concept in spirituality, is awareness. So you're less and less aware. You're more in cyberspace, or you're just ignoring everyone. You're not going out. You're not connecting. You're disconnecting and removing awareness. Have you experienced something like that before?
Oh yeah, definitely 100%. Especially if a new video game comes out, right? It's just
Ah,
because, but see, and that's how I track it as well, right? So my method of tracking, because as you know, video games are a big part of my life. Like I genuinely enjoy them, the experience, things along those lines, the escapism that can kind of come from it. But I always, my measurement tool is this. If I'm in another life situation, but I'm thinking about what's going on in my game, I know it's too much. Right. And then
right.
that's kind of my measurement tool to be like, okay, all right, I think I'm getting a little imbalanced here, when it comes to escapism and things along those lines, right? It's just almost because, I lose that mindfulness piece, right? And that's my evidence to be like, okay, let's put it down for a couple days. Let's just try to refocus the energy, right? And just kind of reimagine the relationship that I have with those leisure activities, right? So it's always just kind of like checking myself, if you will.
So I wanna touch upon that concept of checking yourself and how. how do we recognize it? Because we know what we're gonna say. It's all about somatic and balancing and noticing it's all in our body. But before we get into that, let's talk first about what other kinds of escapism, because we talked video games. I don't know if everybody who's listening to it can resonate with that. It's like, "Ah, that's stupid. Like, why would you a fake
Nerds.
game?" Yeah. So so what are other types of escapism you've noticed with people you work with, people, 'cause it could be workaholic also. It
Oh
can
yeah, it
be
can
also putting
be.
yourself too much into your work,
Well, it's
right?
all about what is your distraction, right? So is it drinking alcohol? Is it smoking a bunch of weed just to like feel high and chill and stuff like that? Is it binge watching your favorite show? Is it scrolling too much on social media? Like, what are the things that are disconnecting you from the present moment? Like, what is your outlet, right? And is it a numbing outlet, relaxing outlet, like we've talked about in the past, right? Like what is there that's just turning the brain off and then turning it back on, right? And the more that we can recognize that, hey, if I'm coming home from work, right, and my first thought is I want to doom scroll on Reddit, or I want to just bypass my wife, say hi, hope you had a great day, and then jump right on the PlayStation, right? I mean, that's definitely showing a
Which, by the
massive
way, that's
imbalance,
rarely a conscious decision, right? That's
right?
not always like from my experience, it's not like, oh, I'm setting the intention to ignore everybody.
Right, exactly.
Sometimes you already in the point where you're ignoring everyone, you got yourself into that state of numbing, and only in hindsight you understand, you realize that's what
Right.
happened.
Correct. Correct. Again, it goes back to what's familiar, right? What's familiar and what's the baseline that we're creating for ourselves, right? It's almost kind of creating a new message to yourself that, your aspect of survival is in these numbing activities.
So why is it what is it about being conscious and being alive and being focused on our work and practice and spirituality and relationships and building that? Because how much of this was a problem in medieval times,
Hmm.
in like the feudalic, I'm probably saying it wrong, but whatever, back in the day. How much of this was a problem? Like, was the caveman like was staring on rocks, or was like painting on the wall, and like his partner is yelling at him, "You need to go out, Aunt. You're painting too much. You're
Yeah.
painting too much. That little nobody would read it. We can't
Yeah.
read."
hmm I would,
Eh,
I would think that it was there, but maybe it looked different, right? Because you think about like maybe the medieval times or something like that. Maybe it's the guy that
Go
spends
to the
all of his
tavern too much.
exactly goes to the tavern too much, right? Or something along those lines. So I mean, I think that it's always
I
been
wouldn't judge them. I gotta say, if you're going there working at the salt mines
hmm
and coal mine, like you're literally poisoned
Oh
by
yeah.
heavy metals,
hmm
dude, go to the tavern. Knock
Yeah.
yourself out. I understand it. I
hmm
completely understand it.
But yes. Yeah, like I said, I think it was there, but maybe it just looked different. We live in a
Right,
society now where there's so many immediate dopamine hits, immediate reward systems, right? Everything, I
right.
mean, the entire world is at our fingertips, right? I mean, just reflect back on, pre-internet, right? Like, do you remember, forgive me, but do you remember life before the internet, or is that before your time?
Excuse me, don't patronize me.
Hey man, I always
Two.
I always have to check myself in that too because I remember you're younger than me.
Yeah, I do remember. I do remember no internet. Internet came very late for me. Even when it was out, I was barely interested in it
hmm
also. My escapism was always games, but I remember the I when internet really took the concept, like when it came really by storm. Like, I think I remember around the time where people could take pictures with their phones.
hmm
I think that was about kind of the pivoting point for me, noticing
hmm
it.
hmm
It was like ICQ, people messaging each other, like, but it was always under the guise of connection. Was
hmm
here's another way to connect. Here's another way to reach out. So it almost felt like a social activity, I guess.
hmm
Um, But I don't remember it being really a problem. Like we most of the time we went out, try to find friends, we look for reasons to go out of the house, as
Hmm.
a kid. Um, I feel we're though I feel like we're a little diverting from from the topic though. I'm
Sure.
okay. I'm okay. I would like to talk about it, but mainly since no matter which point of time we're talking about, you're suggesting there's always going to be some sort of distraction. So let me bring you back to my original question, which was, why is it so difficult to stay conscious? Why do you have in a yoga practice, you have to go swami, you have to renounce, uh, like you gotta go celibacy, you have to wear orange all the time, or you gotta be a monk in a Christian monk somewhere, or you gotta be like Jewish and get like this big silly hats all the time. Like, is that really the only way to be fully immersed in life is to have such a strict regiment, or we're like doomed to always find distractions no matter what?
Hmm. Well, I think that, there's something to be said about the rigidity and the structure of people that are devoting their lives to really accessing, like true mindfulness, awareness, really leaning into a lot of those philosophies, right? And more power to them, right? But I think that there's a lot of us that are interested in that aspect of awareness, mindfulness, spiritual enrichment, things along those lines that aren't quite ready to go that step, right? So I think it all
Without
starts.
working that hard. You
Yeah,
don't want to work that hard.
exactly. Right, right. I mean, if the entire world was monks, right? That would be quite an interesting world we live in. But
Right.
we're not all at that level. So then it's identifying or really identifying or defining is the word I was looking for. Defining what the areas of your own practice you want it to be. So, what does mindfulness mean to you? What does awareness mean to you, right? And what do we need to do in order to strengthen those behaviors? Is mindfulness for me actually sitting down at the dinner table with my wife rather than watching something while we eat? Right? That's a very attainable, easy thing that I can do that I would identify as mindfulness, awareness, connection, things along those lines that I can practice, right? So I'm not shedding all of my worldly possessions. I'm not throwing on orange, but I am practicing
You
mindfulness
shaved your
awareness.
head, that
I
kind of
did
like a
shave
good
my
start.
head. That was the
You can
first
easily
thing.
go
And
monk. You
I
can
could,
easily
I
go monk
could,
if you wanted
definitely.
to.
I mean, look at my brothers and my dad. I mean, we already look like we're a set of monks. We're all bald-headed, bearded
Yeah, you look
individuals.
like a cult. You look like the cult of Anthony.
I know, the
That's
Anthony cult.
But so okay. So it's really about finding those little moments throughout your day to cultivate personal growth.
Hmm.
And growth, uh, I guess let's talk about that. What do we define as growth? Like why should we focus on personal growth and not just fully embrace the idea of just numbing ourselves forever? Like if there was a pill, a magic pill that someone would give us and say, okay, just take this and you'll be happy. You won't have anxiety. You won't have worries. You won't have any of those things. Just take that every day and just basically live like
Exist.
that, right? You'll be happy. You won't need to do anything. You don't need to worry about anything. You can just be high all the time.
Hmm.
Like, why is that undesirable? Like if it was cynical, I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. Why do you care about developing your soul? You're gonna die anyway.
Hmm.
So might as well have as much fun and comfort as you can here. I think this is a big question that comes up to a lot of young people these days, especially if they're not planning any family or something, or
Right.
they kind of have this concept and idea in their minds like, okay, what is this for? What am I doing this for? Is it to be enlightened? Is it to have a lot of money? Is it to support future generation? Does it even matter if I do that?
Hmm.
So why shouldn't I just forget about all this personal growth stuff? Let me just focus on playing video game, getting high, drinking, and not taking care of myself, and hopefully someone will take care of me, like
Mm.
assume I don't, and assume there's no punishment to this. Like, why shouldn't I do that? Is the only reason I don't want to just do whatever I want is because there's going to be punishment to that? Like, I'm going to lose money, I'm going to lose my house, respect, or whatever. Is this really just to avoid that negative scenario? Why shouldn't I just take care of my most basic desires and that's it? That's my new religion.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, defining what you want out of life, right? I mean, there are probably people out there that are like that. I would guarantee there's people out there like that. And if that is what they want to do, then there's nothing I can do or say that's going to change that for them, right? I
Mhm.
think that when you define what growth means to you and who you want to be at the end of it, right? Let's assume that Christianity has it right and you get to the pearly gates and to St. Peter, I think is the one there, right? And they're reviewing your life, right? Things like that. Like, what are the things that you can do?
You're asking the wrong person.
I know, I'm asking somebody of
In the comments, someone in the comments, please help Michael
yeah, yeah, definitely.
find Jesus.
Um, but yeah, so you take your life in review, right? And let's you identify, well, what are the things that you're really proud of? What are the things that you're really grateful for, right? You're grateful of, right? On your last day and you kind of look back, right? What kind of life did you have? Right? If you want a life of just constant numb and just killing time until you get to that place, I mean, okay, that's what you've identified, right? But there's something powerful about continuing to develop and continuing to grow because people have a tendency to gravitate towards individuals like that, right? They see them as inspiration, right? I like to see it as by me continuing to grow, right? By me growing into, let's say, independent private practice therapy, things like that, I can at least look back and say, I'm sure that what I've done has inspired others. I've left some form of a footprint here in any way, shape, or form, right? I've been more mindful, I've been more aware, I'm calm, I'm centered, I'm at peace, I'm at acceptance, things like that. And I know that I had done my best, right, to make things better for other people.
Okay. So I guess that brings me up to the next question, which would be okay, so it's kind of reflecting your life, and it's about kind of let me organize my thoughts. You're saying that either way is kind of a trade-off. You decide what you're trading for what, and
Hmm.
it's up to you to make the decision if the trade-off is worth it or not,
Yep.
right?
I say that to clients all the time. Everything has a price tag. Could be a good price tag, could be a not so good price tag, but everything's got a price tag.
Right. Michael, by the way, I'll give you a question. Kayla is locked outside, so let me give you a question. Give them something information, and I'll go open the door.
Okay.
Um, so my experience is that those people tend to be not happy. That's kind of like when I hear people are cynical and saying, "Hey, I don't, it doesn't matter if you're live or die, like morality is just it's just a figment of your own mind." There's this deep cynicism. To me, I always think this is kind of fake. I always think it's kind of a fake concept because they say that, but I never feel like they actually believe it.
Right.
Because usually when you start talking to them, you'll see they will hold some certain values. There's certain things they'll do. I remember having this conversation with my friend, and he talked about like, oh, it doesn't matter, like all these moralities things don't matter really, and it's all in your head. And I said, well, then if that's the case, why don't you leave your daughters and your wife and just go party somewhere? Like,
Hmm.
why do you work so hard?
Hmm.
And he never have an answer. And I said, well, maybe your actions speak louder than your words. So maybe
Right.
there's something deep down inside of us that craves to grow as a person.
Hmm. Hmm.
And here, tell them more about that. And I can still hear you. So.
Sure. But I think you bring up a really interesting point. Even those that may feel unmotivated, defeated, kind of predisposed to cynicism, what's the point, things like that. I think as humans, we naturally do want more, right? It's not necessarily that, I think you said it great, like the actions speak louder than words, right? True cynicism would be, okay, let me just leave everything behind and just party all the time and anything along and something along those lines, right? But that there is something, it's that aspect of hope, right? Because I would assume that people don't want it to be that way. People don't want it to be meaningless, right? People want to find meaning, right? I mean, a big cause or a big source of depression is feeling like you don't have meaning, you don't have purpose. I'm meaningless, right? A lot of these negative cognitions that we have about ourselves that come from cynicism, right? So I think that there's a drive within us that, we do want more for ourselves and we want more for others, right? But sometimes the behaviors get in the way.
Right. So I guess that's the core of the matter. To kind of circle us back. We went on the scenic route for
Yep.
this one.
Hmm.
But I think the core concept of how we build routines is right there, what you said, is about finding meaning in the routine.
Hmm.
And the key to having like a good consistent practice is to do it with meaning.
Hmm.
Because if you do it just for the sake of doing it, it won't be a routine.
Right.
You'll naturally fall back into what's pleasurable rather than what is good, because we are deep wired for meaning. And
Hmm.
even the most cynical of people, the most cynical did tamas. For those who don't know, tamas is like the one of the gunas in yoga, which is the energy, not energy, but it's the part of life that is connected to matter. So if you're deep ensconced in matter, it's like you're dead. You're fully just material. There's
Hmm.
nothing moving you except material. And if, even for the most people who are so deep into that, they would find meaning in being dead. They will just gravitate towards gothic concepts, emo concepts. Maybe I'm misrepresenting, but maybe not emo, but like gothic
As a
death,
former goth individual. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Are you right? Right,
Oh
you
yeah, oh
were a bit
yeah,
of a goth,
definitely. I
right?
was. I was a goth kid, a goth skater kid.
I guess maybe that's more angst. I guess
Yeah,
to be more accurate, I
for me
think.
it was angst. Yeah, definitely.
So I guess I'll put it more in like the idea of death calls or like self-harm
Hmm.
or kind of deep cynicism.
Hmm.
Even then, even those people will find meaning in that.
Yep.
They will look for meaning in that. So whatever we want to create a routine in, it sounds like what we're looking for is meaning.
Hmm. Well,
Do you think that sounds right? Did that
well,
sound right?
I wanted to jump in on the self-harm thing because I think that's really interesting that you bring that up because I've heard more than once, right, from people that I've worked with that the self-harm makes them feel, right? The self-harm reminds them of feeling. The self-harm helps them feel freer, right? So I think you're hitting the nail on the head when there's meaning even in the most cynical activities, right? When it comes to self-harm, or even when you think of people with suicidal ideation. Sometimes you'll hear like by me passing, right, it'll have meaning to others, right? Or something along those lines, right? I think you're right. Like we all naturally want to feel like we have meaning. We want to feel like we have purpose, right? And that's why it's important to find the meaning within the practice.
Well, which brings us to the topic, which is spirituality and the little things.
Hmm.
Because if you're gonna keep following the big things all the time, it's gonna always feel like it's out of your grasp.
Yeah, I tell
So,
clients that all the time. If you start at the end
right,
and work backwards, it can breed frustrations and doubts. But if you kind of focus on where you are right now, and like
right.
I said, everything being a success, those are the building blocks to develop the end result that might not even look like what you thought it would be. It could be something even better.
And here's the funny thing, because you see it in all the commercials, the ads that you see online, and all the things that people find always attractive, all the way from like we're talking from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. And it's always selling a dream. It always it sells you on the end result.
Hmm.
It's never the commercial for for abs exercise or for a gym is like a perfect guy going perfectly like this and has like a perfect jacked up body and he looks so cool, everybody
Hmm.
loves him. But it doesn't show you the guy who is like, ah, it's 7 in the morning, I don't want to do any of this. Or just like a
Yeah.
beer belly, and it kind of
Right.
throws poorly. And the coach is saying like, don't do it like that, do it like this. I'm like,
Yep.
but
Yep.
that's never. I would love to see an ad like that. I would
Yeah.
love to see re honest ads. That would be something.
That would be great.
And but it plays on something in our head, right? It plays
Hmm.
on that tendency to look for the result. So sometimes we want, because we are tuned towards finding that meaning, like our antennas kind of tuned to it, and but we don't understand the process. We don't find meaning in the process. We only find meaning in the result.
Hmm.
That's why we don't get the result.
Right.
And we need to find meaning in the process,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And that's why I made that right turn. It wasn't
Yeah.
because I thought to myself, oh, I want my six pack. I should go do kickboxing. It was like, no, I shouldn't resist this. I
Hmm.
should go.
Hmm.
This is
Hmm.
good for me. And
Hmm.
me making that left turn towards going home is taking away something from me. So finding that meaning in the little things, in that just going out and making a short walk, giving yourself a little bit of meditation, a little bit of breathing, a
Hmm.
little bit of healthy eating and awareness, a little bit of connection with someone, a little bit of humor in your life, just little tidbits, little things of little bits
Hmm.
of spirituality
Hmm.
in your
Hmm.
life. I was hoping you would pick up on my joke, little bits.
Little bits.
Little little bits.
Well,
But
I want to add another thing in there too because
please.
there was something that I heard a while ago and I don't remember who it was that said it, but one of their processes that, really helped me when it comes to understanding like the price tags that things have is asking yourself what happens immediately after. Right. So if you decided to take that left turn and go home, right, what happens immediately after? Are you then filled with guilt that you didn't actually go do the thing? Right? Or let's say you eat the pizza, right, rather than the salad, right? Like what happens after? Are you filled with
Always pizza over salad. What are you
I
talking about?
agree. Hey, man, I'm telling you. So maybe what happens after is being satisfied. But for other people, maybe they'll see it as a failure, right? If they're
Right.
focusing on diet, right? Or something along those lines. So it's really asking yourself, okay, if I do this, what happens after, right? Or if I do this, what happens after? And what has the better, well, price tag?
Right. And I think I heard you saying talking about that price tag, and I think another word for it is trade-offs. That's another
Yeah.
way of phrasing it because every action we do is a trade-off.
Yep.
And honestly, the trade-off of going and training was worth it more than the trade-off of not going.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I'm trading off something that is not as valuable, really. And I think this is a good point you're making. And this is a very practical advice. If you have, and I'll give two of those. One, if you do have a time, like Michael suggests, to assess your decision. And for that, you have to be aware there's a decision to be made.
Hmm.
All right. We don't always have that. Sometimes we don't notice. We're already in the numbing space and we
Hmm.
already kind of skipped away and kind of got off our routine before we're even consciously acknowledging it, even though
Hmm.
subconsciously we're aware of what's going on. So when you have the time, give yourself that moment to assess. And like Michael said, put a little price tag, see what is the trade-off, and try to lean towards what's more valuable. I think that's a great advice towards building when you have the decision to
Hmm.
make,
Hmm.
that will make it a little easier. Um, Another advice I would say, and that's something I got from the army, which is the complete opposite of this advice, is as soon as the option comes up to train, stop asking yourself questions. Stop.
Hmm.
As soon as the thought comes out to your head, go do it.
Hmm.
And it sounds simple, but it is a skill you can develop over time.
Right.
You don't have to, it's not all or nothing. I'm not suggesting that if you didn't do it, that means you failed. Like
Right.
Michael said, it's not a failure, right? To reinforce your point. But it's another skill you can develop into your arsenal. The idea
Hmm.
of As soon as that thought of like, oh, should I go to a run? Just grab your shoes and go.
Hmm.
Go, should I go train? Just go. And I've found myself in that situation many times that I know that if I sit down and think about whether I should go or not, I'm
Hmm.
gonna choose not.
Right.
I know myself. So as I'm fond of saying, this would be one of those moments where it's good to choose to be stupid.
Yep.
I believe this is a very important life skill is to learn when to be stupid and learn when
Hmm.
to be smart.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
don't
Hmm.
be smart when it's time to be stupid. And don't be stupid when it's time to be smart.
Right.
It's important to learn the difference between the two.
Sounds like a future episode. What's it mean to be stupid? What's it mean to be smart?
Yeah,
Spirituality and
you know.
stupidity.
Stupid
Stupid
spirituality.
spirituality. I like that.
And you know what? I like that. I like that. Okay. So I guess that brings me up to the next. I guess we're now in the point of giving more practical advice. So how we deal with that feeling of, oh, I didn't do it. I noticed that I lost my routine. It's
Hmm.
been like a few weeks. I knew I
Hmm.
had to come to Tai Chi class and Qigong class. I know Shahar is a great teacher and I love
Hmm.
taking Shahar's classes. He's
Of
amazing.
course. Of
But
course.
every time this this dumb band I like to play for it is I stay late for them. And and because I stay up late, I wake up late because I put the alarm, I have the intention to come, and then I go to sleep, and then
Hmm.
I miss this lovely, amazing class that I know is great for my soul,
Hmm.
which is way better than a dumb, dumb band.
Now, come on. To be fair, that only happened once, and it was because we played a show.
Oh my God, that happened at least 5 times, Michael. 5 times at least, where you said I'm gonna come, and then you didn't show up, and I know, of course, I know, Mr. Michael went to sleep too late.
Oh, yeah. Well, that happens a lot. I know that.
Okay, so what do we do with this? So when that happens, when you're Michael and that happens, and you obviously feel very guilty because
Hmm.
Shahar means the world to you,
Of
and
course.
you love doing Qigong and Tai Chi.
Definitely.
Oh, my cat just jumped on my thighs. Um, what do you do with that? Ow, ow, ow! This is crazy. Stop it. So sorry,
You're good.
confusing. But Michael, what's your advice? What do you do?
What do I do? Well, first I ask myself, when you're bringing up the question of what do you do if there's a potential area of, I'll call it a misstep, right? A misstep in your routine. Because again, I don't want to, I want to stay away from failure. But let's say you've set the intention, right? You didn't quite nail it, right? I like to look at, well, what are the things that actually went well, right? Did I own up to my mistake and let Shahar know, hey, so sorry, right? Rather than just ghosting, right? Or am I making that up on my own? So if I miss class itself, but I still know that Tai Chi Qigong is, important, to keep the practice going. Maybe I didn't go to class itself, but I stepped out in the backyard and gave myself a routine to do, right? To just kind of maintain the flow, maintain the consistency. There's ways to work around the missteps rather than just seeing it as an absolute failure and considering the rest of the day as a wash. Because it very easily could be I woke up late. I'm not going to make it on time. I have a very long drive to make it to class, so I could just as easily be like, well, I'm just going to go back to bed and then have a lazy day and just like not do anything, right? But that's not what I do. I'll wake up, recognize, oh, I overslept, forgot to set my alarm, or the drive time, I'm just not going to make it in time. Okay, let me own up to it, let me reach out, let me notify, and then what am I going to do in order to make up for that time, right? So what am I going to do that's still going to move me forward, that's in the same vein, even though it doesn't look exactly like the way I wanted it to?
Hmm. I think you brought up a very interesting point when you talked about that feeling of failure, and you called it a misstep. And I think it's a great point to treat it like a misstep because you're on the path, and just because you had little sidestep there, and you had to sidestep a little pothole or something on the road, like it's okay. You can move on. Like you
Hmm.
can keep moving forward. You don't have to like go back and
Right.
like using the metaphor of like climbing a big mountain. Like if
Hmm.
just because there's a little gap that makes you go a little left side, that doesn't mean you can't keep stepping up.
Hmm.
And here's the thing, and maybe we can go back and forth on this, but I actually like the word failure. It's not like, but I think a little better relationship with it sometimes because I don't think we should be afraid of the term failure.
Hmm.
Because failure is an experience. It's something that we feel as an experience. And sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big, or sometimes it's meaningful, sometimes it's not that meaningful, but it's still a human experience. So when we are trying to build a routine and we fail at it, and you say it's a misstep, but sometimes you feel like it's a failure, right?
Right.
It's you can call it whatever you want, but we know what it feels like.
Hmm.
And I think it's important to have a healthy relationship with failure and not treating it as I am a failure. It's more like I'm experiencing the feeling of failure.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say about that as well, is because I think the real question is if you see it as failure, what does that do to your cognition you have about yourself? What does that have to do with your personal belief, right? So if you've developed a good relationship with the word failure, right, and understand it as an experience and part of the journey, that's very, very different than because failure is a very can be a very umbrella term, right? A lot of people have different identifications as to or definitions as to what failure actually is, right? So, but if your relationship with that term of failure reinforces a belief of I can't do it, I'm not good enough, I don't matter, right? I might as well give up, right? I've failed, right? So I don't have the capacity, right? It can be the reason I like to try to stay away from it, especially as we're trying to develop habits, is because I don't want the relationship with that word itself to be something that people internalize and personalize, right? It's not you're a
Right,
failure, right? You've experienced a form of failure on your journey, right? If you
right.
can develop and understand, yes, you're still Shahar, I'm still Michael. We've just experienced a failure. It's not actually indicative of who we are and where we're trying to go. I think that can be a great way to connect. But unfortunately, a lot of people haven't really reached that mindset yet, right? You know, failure has been advertised to us as a you either can or you can't. And if you can't, you've failed, right? So if you've failed, then you can't do it, right? And I think that's a very dangerous area to be in because it can breed the frustrations and the doubts and the give ups and the I'll never do this, right? Or things along those lines. So, but I like what you're saying. If you can really develop your relationship with that term as an experience rather than
Mhm.
you, right? Yeah, just to
Right.
reinforce, it can be a really powerful thing.
Yeah, and that will help you build good, healthy routines and progress in your practice and personal growth if you have a good relationship with failure. And more than that, I'll take that a step forward and say that it's actually paramount. The more you have a healthy relationship with failure, the more personal growth you'll make. Because I like to say that every lesson is first a lesson in humility.
Mm,
And no matter what lesson it is, first, in order to receive that lesson, we have to be a little humble.
mm,
And life is filled with lessons. That's kind of my proof of meaning. Let's call
mm,
it my proof of meaning is because there's lessons in literally everything,
mm,
and you can see it. For example, I had a coworker who taught a class the other day, and and before he went into the class, he was going through this feeling of like, oh, I'm a terrible teacher. I'm not good. I'm kind of feeling like low self-esteem, low confidence, etc. And right after he had a class, and by the way, he's a fantastic teacher. And he went into a class and he had the nightmare scenario. He
mm.
had the worst, worst, worst student you can have imagined. This is yoga. It's a student that was like right dead center in front of him, complaining about every movement he's doing, huffing in the air, saying, I can't do anything. I'm in constant pain. Da, 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 da,
No,
da.
yeah,
Nightmare scenario for every yoga teacher. Like you have to deal with this one person while you're teaching like 30 people.
yeah. Hmm.
And and he literally can't do anything. And he came out, he's like, "Ah, I'm so annoyed, I'm so angry, I'm so angry." And I looked at him And I said, "Do you mind if I give you a little kind of like how I see what you just experienced?"
Hmm.
He goes, "Go for it." I said, "You sat down and said how what a terrible teacher you are." And immediately the universe gave you an opportunity to show you what a great teacher you are and gave you the nightmare scenario
Yep.
of all teachers, and
Hmm.
you still nailed the class. You
Hmm.
still gave a hell of a class. You took care of him. He was even excited enough to want to keep working with you. And people of the class really enjoying yourself. So you gave a good class. Even if it's not a class, like the best class, you had the worst class possible and you still freaking did it.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that kind of the universe gave you proof
Hmm.
against what you just said?
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea, and maybe we can do another episode on that at some point. But it reminds me of one of the, ceremony that I had gone to, and the roadman, the uncle, was talking about this specifically. Is about be cautious what you pray for, right? Because if you pray for strength, then God will give you things to make you strong, right? If you pray for patience, then God will give you things that you're gonna have to be patient for. And he joked, and he was
Right.
like, and people wonder why they have the problem children, like, oh, give me patience with this child. Okay, so then the child acts worse, so that you have to be patient, right? It's very, very I love that.
Don't
I
ask.
love that example because it just kind of reinforced, that
Right, right.
memory of that lesson.
Don't ask for money, or you're gonna have a lot of work on your hand.
Exactly, right.
But yes, and I think this is a kind of a good point regarding how we build routines. Is of course we mentioned having good relation failure, but also finding meaning in these everyday activities. And when we see them as like lessons, it's something, an opportunity for us to grow. It makes it more, you are more involved in the process of your own training.
Hmm.
And you don't see it as something that is separate from you, but it's something that is part of what you do.
Hmm.
Right? Because I feel like it's difficult to hold a routine if you feel disconnected from it.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Like you don't have any piece of you in it. Like, why
Hmm.
would I go running? Like,
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
happens to me if I do
Hmm.
any kind of like physical therapy, or I remember, I think, doing some weights one day, and I remember asking myself, this is my life right now. Why am I doing this? This is not fun. There's nothing
Hmm.
fun about this. Why am I doing this?
Right.
Is this really just to have like a nice little arm? Is this really
Hmm.
it's what I'm doing for? So there was such a disassociation.
Hmm.
So there's no reason in the world that will keep doing it.
Right.
Like you can't force yourself to do something forever.
Hmm.
You'll break down. Your
Hmm.
will get depleted.
Hmm.
But if you're doing something that feels like a calling or a passion or inspiration, or something that you find meaning in, like we said, the spirituality and the little things, then you're much more likely to get energized by it. And I like to say, when you practice, remember when we do our qigong, when if you're finding yourself kind of autopilot, just moving the hands because that's something, because you find yourself in the autopilot, it's just what you do, you'll feel like there's a big minus above your head and it kind of takes away your energy.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if you just take a moment to just be connected to the ground, be connected to the breeze, be glad that you're not on your phone for like a few hours, just a moment to just be outside
Hmm.
because it's so rare.
Hmm.
Then you have a big plus above your head.
Yeah,
It
right.
actually gives you
Gives you
energy.
energy.
It
Yeah.
charges you, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So if you're practicing, so I guess that would be my final advice
Hmm.
is find a practice that gives you energy.
You're right.
And if your practice takes away energy from you, something needs to change. Either
Something
the
is, yeah.
practice,
Hmm.
find something else to do,
Hmm.
or find meaning in what you do.
Yes, exactly. And I think that ties really well into kind of what we started talking about in the sense of finding your reward system within your practice, right? Like what is
Right.
the meaning? What is the thing that is energizing you about the thing that you want to do, right? And so just kind of, again, mindfulness. That's what we like to talk about.
Right, 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 right. And okay, so let's summarize for everyone. So we're we're talking about our best advice, and fill in whatever I missed, Michael, please. First of all, find meaning in your practice.
Hmm.
Two, instead of disconnecting your life from the practice, bring the practice into your life. So every little thing can be an aspect of your personal growth, like
Right.
eating mindfully, adding a little exercise, a little push up before you go to sleep, like kind of incorporate these routines into your life. Another way is take this opportunity when you're in a decision spot, whether to follow your routine and do something that's good for your growth, or follow what is pleasant and kind of reinforces the ego, let's call it. Then give yourself a moment to assess, and like you said, put a price tag on both, and then make the decision,
Hmm.
the, and make the more desirable trade-off. Or as soon as the thought comes to do something you know is good for you, because we all know, we don't really have to assess. Most of the time, we
Right.
know
Hmm.
immediately.
Hmm.
So as soon as the thought comes up, just do it. Don't
Hmm.
like the Nike, just
Hmm.
do it.
Hmm.
Like there's
Hmm.
nothing to think about it. And I guess I'm missing something. Am I?
Well, I mean, just reinforcing the one thing a day. I like that.
One thing a day. That's always a good one. Yeah, little steps, and little steps in understanding the value and the meaning in the process.
Yes.
Really find meaning in the process. Don't be obsessed about the result. Be obsessed about the process.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's a good. If you have to choose what to be obsessed about, that's a good one. Like
Yes.
love and have a good relationship with failure.
Hmm.
Just do all these things me and Michael said, and you will be a-okay. Like,
That's right. Everything will be just fine.
okay, I think that's a good advice. And this is something obviously me and Michael we're both working on. We're hardly masters in any of these, but these are
Nobody's a
definitely things.
master of anything.
Well, I like to say, practice like you're a master.
Yep.
M- Train like you're a student.
Yes.
That's always my thought.
I like that a lot.
Mr. Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you as always. And
That
just a reminder to
that
everybody, we will be at the Shivananda Yoga Ranch we'll be arriving the 11th, but our workshop goes from the 12th until the 14th. And be on the lookout. We'll also be at Yogaville in Virginia at the end of September into the beginning of October. So
that's
we'll have
also
dates
live,
for
by
that.
the way. That's
Hmm.
officially live as well.
Yep. So yeah.
Uh,
So we're
all right,
excited.
perfect. Yeah, we should start mentioning those things in the beginning of the episode too.
Sure. Hey.
But
This is still a learning process for us as well.
we're just doing whatever we want.
Exactly.
All right, Mr. Michael, thank you very much.
Of
Thank you everyone
course.
for listening. If you have anything that you can think of as your good advice towards building a good routine, please share with us. Let us know. Me and Michael would love to talk about it. If you
Mhm.
have good questions or good comments, we'll definitely bring it up and give you a shout out. So thank you
Definitely.
very much. Do that
Awesome.
thing that people do. What is it? The like and
The
the
like,
subscribe
subscribe,
and
smash the
the
bell, all that good
bell,
stuff.
press the bell, the
And all that,
notification. You know, like
yeah.
yeah, put some good energy in your cyberspace, and
That's right.
you have this lovely Michael and his bald Swami head, and
And
have
Shahar and
that in
his beautiful
your.
new haircut.
It's not new. It's just what it is. It just
Okay.
changes its
It
shape
just changes its
naturally.
shape. Yep.
Yeah, it's its own creature. Anyway,
Yep.
thank you, Michael. Have a
All
great
right.
rest of your day, and thank you everyone for joining and listening in.
Yep.
I don't know. That's it.
That's
We're
it.
done.
All
That's done.
right.
Why you're here? Go.